Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swirsky, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swirsky, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swirsky Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit more Bears and free agency, talking a lot of Cubs and baseball happenings, and might dabble in a few other things. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. There's still time left for you to go see a great game of the Rockford Ice Hogs this season. So head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swirsky Sports sent you. Alex, how have you been, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. I have a couple quick questions for you. Number one, did you see the ending to that Duke game?
No, I didn't. I was visiting my dad, and we were watching the Cubs game that looked like a football score.
Yeah, the Bears beat the Chargers 24-6, so to speak. But yeah, no, a crazy ending. You'd have to watch it.
Is Duke out?
No, Duke won, but they almost lost by like an inch. You'll have to watch it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I saw when I was driving over there, they were, was it Central Florida? Who were they playing?
Yeah. UCF.
Yeah. And UCF was up, but it was really early. And then, and then I saw that Duke had taken the lead, and then we just watched the Cubs game for the rest of the time. And I didn't, and there was something else on the radio when I was driving home. So I didn't hear anything about it, but I'm gonna have to go and watch that because it is March Madness. Yeah,
it was, an upset was merely maybe less than an inch away. Really, really crazy.
That would have been a big upset.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, most people have them winning it.
Yeah, I have them winning it.
Yeah. Second question is, can you believe baseball starts in less than a week?
Well, I mean, the regular season has already started.
I know it technically has, but still.
But for the Cubs, it's just a couple. Was it Thursday?
Yeah. They'll be in Texas on Thursday.
Yeah, it just sucks that the opening day is like a 2:00 in the afternoon game. Like, I'm going to be at work. I'm going to have to listen to the end of the game on my way home.
Yeah, and the other thing is, at least the White Sox and Cubs are not in Chicago. Now, Kansas City, probably the weather isn't that much better, but at least the Cubs are in Texas. Could you imagine playing like March baseball here in Chicago? It's already bad enough in April and even early May, but
it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of domed baseball stadiums because part of the fun of going to a baseball game is being out in the weather, getting the sun beating down on you. It's fun. Football, another story. I was as a child when they were talking about renovating Soldier Field before they actually did it. Years before, I was like, they can't have a dome. Like, domes are terrible. And then I hit adulthood and I'm like, why didn't the Bears get a dome? But that's another story.
Or a whole other stadium.
But one that doesn't look like a spaceship crashed into an already ugly building. But yeah, just baseball in the Midwest in March, even April, is just terrible. Terrible idea.
Look at all the snow outs last year.
Yeah, snow outs. And the thing is, like, it's one thing to say, oh, hey, we'll start all those teams on the road in either the South, the West Coast, or in domed stadiums. But number one, that sucks for the fans of those teams that have to travel every year because you don't get to see the season opener. There's always, well, a week later we get the home opener. You miss out on that opportunity. You don't get a fair shake at it. And it starts your team, sort of in a hole of having to play road games, usually multiple series before you get a home series.
The Cubs play in several different places before they come home. They play in Texas first, then they go to Atlanta, then they go to Milwaukee. Now you have 2 southern stadiums and one that has a dome. So weather-wise, you probably won't have to worry too much about cancellations and whatnot. But still, that's a lot of games to play before you even come home.
Yeah, and right at the beginning of the season, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. Though the beginning of the season is it's a time where you're going to need to take advantage because the first month of the season is against a lot of bad teams, and it's only going to get harder from there. So you better take advantage of your March and April because that's going to be as big as ever.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw the urgency or the lack of urgency the last couple of seasons, and it's always come back to bite us. So you really need to get a jump, and Jed and Theo made that a point that's kind of where they got at odds with Joe, is the sense of urgency at the beginning of the season and starting off with 3 consecutive road series to start the season because, let's face it, it's because of the weather that, you're already going to be at a disadvantage there.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm not expecting like a start they had in 2016. That was historic. You're not going to see that again. What were they, like 25-6 at one point?
It was.
I mean, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's just a tough one to swallow. And the thing is I don't really know what the solution is because it's hard when you schedule a team to play like 30 days in a row, which is sort of what you need to do if you're going to, compress the season or play a lot of double headers, which are tough. Because if you start the season later, the season's going to go later and you run out of real estate in that end in the Midwest as well. Because come postseason, the weather in Chicago gets pretty chilly.
I just wonder, can't you reduce it to at least maybe 152 games? Could you knock 10 games off the schedule? That means you start maybe a week later and you have a couple more off days and you build in maybe 2, maybe 3 doubleheaders in there. I mean, look, let's say 3 doubleheaders. That gives you a few off days. Reduce it to 152. Start a week later. You could still get a few more off days out of that. I mean, it's probably easier said than done, but, you figure, let's say you start the first or second week of April, 152 games, maybe a doubleheader in the first third, doubleheader in the second, and then in the final third. You spread out your doubleheaders.
I got to ask, which would a baseball purist hate more? Reducing the number of games to 150 games or adding in a pitch clock?
Oh, adding in a pitch clock for sure.
I think they'll both make their heads explode because they're going to be like, well, the records, we're going to have to put this guy would have probably broke the record if he had 10 more games. I'm all for it if it's already a long season. And I love baseball. Don't get me wrong. I love baseball, but I want baseball to be played in the summer. I don't want it to be played in, the spring and the fall and the summer because it's brutal. I don't like to go to games. I won't schedule so typically my wife and I'll try to go to a Cubs Phillies game because she's from
It'll be great this year with Bryce Harper on there.
Yeah. But I look at the schedule, and they usually only come to town once. So it's like usually one
Right.
here, one there. And
One's a 4-game set, one's a 3-game. It kind of switches between
yeah,
years.
so if it's here too early, I'm like, I'm not going. I don't like to go before like late May. It's like the earliest I'll go to a game because you don't know what the weather is going to be like. Even the first like week or so of May, it could.
Oh, yeah.
You could get those. Oh, it's warm out when you get to the stadium, but by like the fourth inning, you're like, your hands are turning blue.
So I went to opening day 2011 and the second game of the season in 2008. In 2011, it was like, I don't remember the exact temperature. It wasn't freezing, but it was cold and it was rainy and misty. Miserable weather for a miserable team. In 2008, it was sunny, no precipitation, but it was freezing in that stadium. And we were in the shade the whole time, so it was even colder under the shade. And I can't get enough baseball. I could watch it any day of the week. But you're definitely right. I mean, if you're going to one of those games, it could be so miserable in early April. I give a lot of credit to one of my friends. She was at that big comeback. Remember last year against the Atlanta Braves?
Yeah.
In that unbelievably terrible weather that Joe Madden and other veterans said that's the worst weather they've ever played in. I mean, you stuck around that whole game to watch a great comeback. That's awesome, but I couldn't imagine sitting in the seats like that. It looked miserable.
Yeah, my brother-in-law and I went to a game, so I live a few miles directly west of Wrigley Field. Like, Waveland is the next street south of me, so like I'm directly west, and so he lives in the southwest suburbs. So he just came up to my house, and we took an Uber from here, and it was drizzly, like not raining, but drizzling on and off. And when you get the late spring, early summer games, and it's drizzling a little bit, and the temperature just drops. It's like 50 degrees.
Yeah.
And so I had like a long sleeve shirt with a hoodie over it, gloves and a hat. And I was like, all right, I'm okay. My brother-in-law has a t-shirt. I'm like, dude, you're going to freeze. He's like, no, I'll be fine.
Oh, no, you're not.
So we get dropped. We were going to get the Uber all the way there, but traffic gets. So we ended up closer to Metro and got off and just walked. And by the time we got there, he's like, I'm freezing. And he went and bought like $100 sweatshirt. And I was like, dude, I would have lent you a sweatshirt for free. And he goes, meh. But still, we were all the way up in like right field, all the way up like the upper deck area. And it was so cold.
You're exposed to the elements up there.
Oh yeah, you are. And the wind was just howling. And it was crazy because like you talk about the wind patterns and stuff, but when you're up there, you're like, you don't even know which way to block because the wind is coming at you from every direction.
Yeah, it's like a swirl, basically. You can't escape it.
Yeah, and it was like, and neither one of us is trying to admit we're cold. So we're like, I'm gonna go downstairs and get a beer. Oh, I'm gonna go get some nachos. Oh, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, right.
I gotta pee. And I think we spent half the game somewhere else because it was so cold and we were damp, like not wet but damp. And it was
that's the
windy.
worst.
And yeah, and then we could not get into an Uber fast enough to get home because it was just miserable.
Well, I remember I went to Wrigley for a Bruce Springsteen concert back when I was in college. And that was a night where it just poured rain like you wouldn't believe it. And we were under the upper deck, literally a row away from the rain. So we were safe then, but it was still pouring when we had to leave. And we parked blocks away, so we couldn't escape that. The other funny weather story at Wrigley was I was at the opposite of what we're talking about right now. Last summer against the Twins, it was so blistering hot. Like Do you remember the series against the Twins where like the field level was like over 110 degrees?
Yep.
Yeah, I was at one of those games, and well, it was fun because in those conditions, it tends to be a slugfest there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was. And the Cubs won. I saw like 4 or 5 Cubs home runs that day, including a grand slam. Schwarber hit a ball almost above the batter's eye and into that upper area of the bleachers. But it's just kind of funny because you can go to Wrigley Field and experience the two most extreme types of weather during a baseball season: the brutal cold, the really damp, or just the unbelievable heat.
Yeah, when it's really hot, I like to sit and like just under in the shaded area, often off to the side in the on either the first or the third base side, just under.
We were in the bleachers.
Yeah, bleachers when it is hot, like it's just there. There's nothing protecting you. Like I get a little bit of shade under there. Yeah.
Luckily, we were in left field. So when you're in left field and the sun goes down, because it was like a 3:00 game, so the sun will go behind the upper deck, but the right field is exposed the entire time. So we're like, no way we're sitting in that area.
Yeah, not a Chicago event, but when I lived in Philadelphia, still, a big group of friends were going, because most of my friends are still Phillies fans, and the Mets were in town, and that's like a Cubs fan going when the Cardinals are playing.
Right,
they hate each other. So I'm like, all right, I'll go. This is going to be absolutely entertaining because it's like Cubs and Cardinals, except with the two angriest fan bases there are, the Mets and the Phillies. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to this. And it was so brutally cold. It was like, must have been like the first or second week of the season. And it went down into the 30s. And I had a winter coat on and I still just like couldn't get warm. I had to buy a winter hat, and because I was freezing, and I was like, this is awful, until a Mets fan and a Philly fan started fist fighting in the row in front of me, and I'm like, all right, now it's okay. They're throwing beer on each other, they're fighting, and random people are just punching as they're fighting.
So like every Phillies Mets game ever.
Yeah. So they're just like some random person's like, I don't know who these people are fighting, and they start punching too. I got to get a couple good swings in.
Be part of the dog pile.
Keep it classy, Philadelphia.
Oh boy.
So while we're on baseball, yeah, I mean, we know the season's starting, and I guess let's just deal with the 500-pound gorilla in the room. Ian Happ is not going to start the season on the major league roster.
No, he's not. And when I heard the news, I wasn't expecting it, but I totally get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like, I didn't think that he would start in the minors, but I don't know why anybody is. So I wasn't like, I was caught off guard. I just wasn't expecting it, but it's very logical. And I don't know why so many Cub fans are up in arms about it, because it's a really logical decision.
And here's the thing. People are saying, I hope it's not just a decision about spring training. No, he was struggling in spring training, but last year, second half, 60 games, he slashed 196, 313, 340, struck out 67 times in
with
182 plate appearances.
With the best part about that 67 strikeouts is he had 30 hits.
Yeah.
30 hits and 67 strikeouts. That's not a good ratio.
Yeah, no, it's not. And the first,
and when you add in though, like, so that's bad. That was a half of a season. I mean, I guess wasn't
a little
quite
less.
Yeah, because the All-Star game was late last year. But roughly half the season last year. So that was bad. And then you followed up with spring training where you hit 135 and with an OPS of 389.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like George Brett would have a batting average like that in a year. That's your OPS?
Yeah. Not good. And here's the thing about Ian Happ is he has good plate discipline. He's drawn a lot of walks. I mean, if you look at last year's numbers, he had a 353 on base percentage and drew 70 walks. Problem is, he couldn't hit pitches in the strike zone. He was striking out a lot. You saw him miss a lot of hittable pitches. And here, I think Ian Happ still has a lot of potential. And like John Lester said, this isn't them giving up on him. This is them not giving up on him by sending him down and letting him play every day. Because look, he wasn't going to be playing every day in the big league level. He wasn't. You would have him playing almost every other day because you're going to try to rotate Albert Almora in there. Albert Almora is going to play against lefties. He wasn't going to play every day. You're going to have Jason Hayward in there a good number of times. You're going to have Kyle Schwarber in there a good number of times. And it really doesn't look like they're going to look at him as a second baseman, which is what he really was in the minors. You saw him as a second baseman, but you look at last year, he didn't really play much second base. He was mostly outfield. So I think this is going to be good for him. I'm rooting for him. I think if he gets things figured out, then he can really improve. And I mean, they gave a solid reason. They said, we want him to hit better from the left side, and we just want him to improve. I think there's really nothing else to say about that.
And the funny part is the reaction that he had from, all of counts I'm hearing would be one that I would find viable if you're a Chris Bryant or somebody like that who was sent down to the minors for service time, reasons. Like that, I would be like, oh, hey, I completely understand their reaction because they're doing you dirty. They're just doing this as a control issue rather than, you're not deserving of being on the roster. Ian Happ, does he not have like Baseball Reference or Fangraphs? Like, are those blocked on his internet? Does he not know what he's hitting? If you batted 196 in the second half of last year and followed up with spring training at 135, what do you think's going to happen? And you're right. Like John Lester gave him a dose of medicine that was both tough and fair. And he needs to be better, and they're sending him down to give him the time and opportunity to be better.
Yeah, I mean, I get being frustrated. It's probably part of letting off steam about himself. He doesn't want to be in this situation, but I'll start being upset by a reaction by that if he refuses to play or he's giving Iowa a hard time. I mean, the thing I will say is Kyle Schwarber, when he was sent down, he owned up to it. He said, yeah, I need to work on it, and I'm going to work on it, and I'm going to get better. I will say that. I felt Schwarber was, from what I remember, a lot calmer, right? I don't remember him being upset.
He was upset, but it was I guess not really upset. It was more of a disappointed in himself. Right. He owned up to it. He knew.
But he owned up to it. That's the point, is what I'm trying to make.
And he went and he did what he needed to do. He came back and he got better.
And I think Ian Happ will too. I don't think we're going to see any issues there. I still think it was just kind of an in the moment, unexpected, even though, maybe he could have owned up to it, right? I don't know. I really don't know what the conversation was like, but I don't really think there's going to be much trouble with him working on it at all. But hopefully he can do it as soon as possible and come back up. I don't know how long it's going to be, but there's obviously going to need some time to make some adjustments, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and it's in Iowa, you're going to get the opportunity to play every day.
Right. And that was one of the whole points of this.
Yeah, you'll play every day, and you get to. They'll probably move him up and down the order to see where he's comfortable. They're going to work on his swing. It's not going to be. It's going to be low pressure because you're in AAA. The all eyes aren't going to be on you. The Cubs are in a win now mode, and there's a lot of pressure that goes along with that. And I'm sure that doesn't make anything easier. I mean, may not make it worse, but it definitely doesn't make it easier, is having that pressure of your front office staff putting the mandate, like, win early, don't rest on your laurels in the beginning of the season, and you struggling in spring training. Like, that just got to be hard to grasp mentally, the stress of that. So you go down to Iowa, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. It's just all about working on your swing to come back to the majors.
Right. It's, he's really thinking about himself here, which is what this is meant for.
So I hope he gets right with the decision, that in the next however many days before, I don't even know when Iowa season starts. I imagine it's probably right around the same time. I just hope that between then and now, he sits down, reflects, understands why they did it, and that it was the right decision. And
I really think he will, personally.
I hope so. I don't have any reason to doubt that he will, but it is funny that he was so upset with Joe, Jed, and Theo that they sent him down. Like, they weren't the ones hitting 135.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was just letting off some steam. He was really frustrated with himself and just mad at the situation. I don't know, but I understand where you're coming from. I think it is kind of good that the Cubs are saying, look, we said we wanted to hold more players accountable. Here we are. We're doing it.
Yeah, that's
Put
the way
down.
The way to be. Yeah. Another bit of news: Brian Dunsing DFA'd to make room for Tim Collins,
who's already been optioned, but we'll probably see Tim Collins at some point, I would imagine. And look, Brian Dunsing was a really cool dude, but I think it's pretty clear that 2017 was a mirage, because since then, in spring training this year and last year, it's been pretty dang bad.
Yeah, it's not been good. So not a surprise at all. Yeah, adios. Maybe he's able to come back sometime later and prove something, but I don't know. Yeah, I wish the best, nothing but the best for Brian Dunsing.
Yeah, me too. I mean, again, he seemed like a really cool guy. If you followed him on social media, a guy really easy to root for, but you can't have that kind of play on this team right now.
Yeah, this is win now mode. Not feel good stories.
So, right. So, I mean, speaking of which, I was kind of drawing out my projected starting 25 on opening day. Obviously, Happ is not going to be there, and I had to cross off Dunsing. I mean, it sounds like from what Theo said, we're going to see Mark Zagunis on that roster, and with the spring he's had, I'd say he's earned it. And also keep in mind, I think we've talked about this before, Nico Horner looks great, but he's not going to be called up to the majors yet. He's not ready. He's too young.
Yeah. It was funny watching the game today with my dad, who was already terrible with names and only half watches things anyway. And he's like, who's this? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Who's that catcher?
Well, there were a lot of guys like that in today's game.
Yeah.
So I got my starting 25 projected right here. I kind of want to know what
All
you
right,
think.
go with it.
All right, so let's start with batters, fielders. Your catching tandem is going to be Contreras and Caratini. I think that's pretty obvious. Okay, so then we got Rizzo, Javi, Bryant, Zobrist, Descalso, Bodie, and the infield.
Mm-hmm.
Then the outfield, you have Almora, Schwarber, Hayward, Zagunis, and then obviously you're going to have Zobrist playing the outfield as well.
Correct.
So those are your
I'm
batters.
right there with you.
Pitchers, Lester, Hamels, Quintana, Darvish, and Kyle Hendricks. Those are your starters. Then you'll have, with in mind that Morrow and Cedeno are on the injured list, so they're not going to be there. You'll have Chatwood, Cishek, Edwards Jr., Montgomery, Rosario, Strope, Kinsler, and Maples.
I think Maples is going to go down.
Well, I mean, if Dunsing was still here, I would have had him off. But if Dunsing's gone and they optioned Collins to the minors, I mean, who would be next? Kyle Ryan maybe would be another option, but I don't know if they'd maybe think that Maples would be ready to start. He doesn't have a lot of experience in the majors, but maybe you go with Mekis. I don't know. But right now I have Maples as kind of a surprise.
Yeah. You know what, though? He's a guy. He's got good stuff. Just, if you can get
great stuff.
You can get consistency out of him.
Right. So I think it'll be either him, Mekis, or Kyle Ryan. Because, again, Morrow and Cedeno are hurt. So we'll see how... I mean, it sounds like Morrow's progressing well, but, he's obviously not going to be ready for opening day.
I that's pretty spot on. I wouldn't imagine seeing too much difference from your list. Batters, I think that's dead on. Maybe a couple of tweaks in the pitchers, but I think you're pretty spot on with what the 25 man roster is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Cubs roster is you pretty much know who at least 22 of the people are going to be.
Yeah.
Barring injury.
Yeah, no Taylor Davis.
No. No Johnny Field either. Okay, question for you really quick.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that they cut Tazawa yesterday? Because a lot of people were.
No, not really.
I wasn't either.
Yeah. I mean, he's a 32-year-old guy trying to land a bullpen spot.
And his velocity was down.
Velocity's down. Velocity down is bad enough, but when you couple it with when was the last time he had a good season?
It's been a couple of years. It was way back in Boston.
Was it maybe 15, 16? That's probably the last time he had a good season.
I think even longer. It's been a while.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it does, again, I offhand, I think he had pretty decent numbers in the spring.
It was kind of a small sample size, though, and I think a lot of his work was against, the scrubs. Because, I mean, the numbers here, 0 ERA, a 0.35 whip in 5 2/3 innings, 9 strikeouts, 0 walks. So you look at that and you're like, dang, that's pretty good. But I think he was in a lot of games against minor leaguers. The velocity was down, and, it's only 5.2 innings.
Yeah, so it's small sample size. And again, this is why we talk about, it's funny because people will be like, well, he's having a great spring. And then when Ian Happ gets sent down, they're like, what are you holding spring training numbers against him? Like, you can't have it both ways. It's either spring training numbers mean something or they don't. And I'm of the opinion that the numbers themselves don't mean anything, but you have to look at the whole picture. Is a guy that's already in his 30s, hasn't had a good season in a while, velocity drop, even it's a small sample size of numbers, and you watch who he's pitching against and what the pitches look like. I mean, if you go up there and throw some junk ball and some 18-year-old kid, it's square down the middle and he just misses and pops it up, that's, it's going to look like, oh yeah, he got this guy out, but we all know that guy just missed on a pitch. And if a major leaguer was going to get that, he would have clobbered it, 4 rows back into the bleachers.
Right. I think when you see velocity drops and relievers you brought in via like waiver claim or non-roster invitee, I think that right there is pretty much the flag to say, all right, I don't think we could keep this person on. If his velocity was looking a lot better and he had a bit more of a sample size, they'd probably find a way to keep him, but that just wasn't the case.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you lose some velocity as a starter, sometimes you can get away with that because you've usually got multiple pitches.
Like John Lester.
Yeah, John Lester can get away with it. And there's a lot of guys. I mean, look at Verlander. Verlander, he had a drop in, he's regained some of his velocity, but he had other pitches. Jake Arrieta, drop in velocity, was able to do it with other pitches. The thing with bullpen guys is they usually don't have that huge repertoire of pitches.
Fastball slider. That's what a lot of them are. Fastball slider. Yep.
And it's guys like watch when they put a guy against the Cubs. It's always against the Cubs. And when they bring in the reliever, the first thing that they say about like 80% of them is big, strong, hard throwing right-hander, because that's what they are.
That's what a lot of relievers are these days. Yeah.
It's just guys that come in and throw fireballs, and until you get to the high leverage relievers at the end, like the middle relievers are just hard throwing guys. And and if you're a reliever and you lose velocity, you're sort of a duck out of water.
Yeah. I mean, there's only
somebody out of water,
fish out of water,
duck out of whatever ducks are out of.
Ducks can't go out of water, but I know what you mean.
So you're just not in the proper element. Like you're losing what makes you valuable.
I mean, there's only a handful of guys like Mo Rivera or Trevor Hoffman. I mean, you had relief pitchers, a lot of greats who had a really specific pitch that wasn't just a 99 mile an hour fastball or a slider. You had a cutter from Mariano Rivera. You had split-fingered pitches from a number of big-time relievers, like Bruce Sutter was one of the originals to kind of pioneer that pitch. Craig Kimbrell, he's got real sick movement on his pitches, and he's been one of the best closers in baseball history. But, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of guys who mainly throw fastball slider, maybe occasionally a changeup, but it's mostly fastball slider. Remember Carlos Marmol? Fastball slider. Hector Rondon? Fastball slider. Aroldis Chapman? 80% fastball, like 20% slider. I don't know if those are the real ratios, but let's face it, when you face Aroldis Chapman, you're only thinking about one thing, 105 mile an hour fastball. You're not going to see changeups or sinkers or splitters. You're just going to see really fast pitches. And, that's how it goes. The
thing is, the names that you said of relievers that could get away with it are also the list of the best relievers ever to play the game.
But they're keeping up with it. That's the thing.
Yeah, so it is not the norm that you can get away with it. It's the people that are able to get away with it is because they're the best. And like most guys just can't do that. It's the average middle reliever, when he loses velocity, loses a job.
Look at Aroldis Chapman when he was tired and he wasn't throwing 100. Look what happened.
Yep.
You're right. Same thing with Hector Rondon. His wasn't as much. I don't think it was as much of a velocity drop as it was just. I don't know. I can't remember how much his velocity dropped, if any, but I think he just didn't have the command like he once had, and players were kind of figuring it out. But if you take away that fastball slider, if it's not good, then he can't really find a way around it. He doesn't have a curve or anything like that, or a changeup or a sinker. I mean that's really the whole point here. Is it's much more concerning when you see relievers lose velocity than starters.
Yeah, because you don't really hear about relievers losing velocity because they just go away.
Right. Exactly. Or
so. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't really have a second point. It was pretty much repeating what you were saying. It was they either go away or they get it back at some point, but that could take a while, and it doesn't always happen.
Or they sign a big contract with the Marlins.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys, they'll go away. You'll see a lot of great relievers. Do you remember what was his name? Was it Heath Bell? Do you remember Heath Bell?
Yes.
And
yes, I do.
He for a number of years was a dominant reliever. And then, snap of a finger, he just lost it. Because when he was in San Diego, he was lights out good.
Yeah, he was. Didn't he won the Rolaids Relief Award like 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm. 3-time All-Star. Between 2009 and 2011, this was all in San Diego, he had an ERA of 2.36 and a FIP of 2.54, strikeouts per 9 of 9.6. And he was really good.
And he proved my point. After he left the Padres, he signed a deal with the Marlins.
Yeah, remember that 2012 Marlins team? They got this so-called super team together, and then it just fizzled out.
That happens.
Another name that I bring up, but I think this is more attributed to health, not really just losing stuff. But remember Eric Gagne?
Yes.
Remember how hard he threw?
Uh-huh.
And in 2003, he had a 1.2 ERA and a FIP of 0.86. His strikeouts per 9, 15. And he was out of the league at age 32 because of injury, but he had that short shelf life of being dominant.
Yeah. I'm looking at Heath Bell's numbers, and he was dominant in those years that he played for the Padres. And then he won the Rolaids Relief Award, went to Miami, and his whip went up to 1.6, and his ERA went up to over 5.
Yeah. And 8 blown saves.
Yeah. And he played 2 more seasons after that and was done.
Yeah. Arizona and Tampa Bay. The last time I remember watching him pitch was on Miami. I don't even remember when he was a Diamondback or a Tampa Bay Ray.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was all the shock of being a Marlin and, those numbers he put up there. And then it was just like, woof, into the ether. Woof.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show, I think bullpens are one of the hardest things for a GM to maintain because of how fickle they are, because of how many relievers don't have long shelf lives. You obviously have your handful that do, but a lot of these guys don't. There's only a handful of Craig Kimbrells and Moes and Hoffmans and Bruce Suitors. There's only a really small handful of those guys. You could go back maybe 4 or 5 years ago and look at a lot of the top relievers then, and they haven't stayed that way like guys like Craig Kimbrell have.
Well, it's the funny thing is that the high leverage guys, they get a boatload of money, and you got to lock them up to more years than you really want to. And when those guys hit the wall, they hit it hard.
Yeah.
And, usually like the best ones will get some sort of bounce back. Like Wade Davis had a bounce back in Colorado. He had a rough start there.
He did. But, he kind of established himself as one of the best relievers in the game.
Yeah, so he had a bounce back. What's his name in for the Dodgers was Kenley Jansen.
Yeah.
He had a rough spell there too and started to come back. But these guys, you're paying them big money, and they're starting to run out of gas, and eventually it's going to be bad news, and they're just gonna be gone. They just those relievers, the middle relievers, it's harder to maintain a good bullpen with middle relievers. But the thing is they're relative. They don't get paid much. They're on short-term deals, and you change them like you change underwear.
Yeah, exactly. Remember Justin Grimm?
Yeah.
He had 2 really good years with the Cubs. He had a decent 2016. The FIP was a lot lower than the ERA, but the strikeout numbers are really good, and the walk numbers were not very good, but he was able to work around it. And then after 2015, 2016, it's been really downhill since, unfortunately. And, I liked him too, but that's why you really have to appreciate Pedro Strop. He has been one of the most consistent relievers in baseball the past 5 years. You really have to appreciate him.
Yeah, I think he can blame the consistency on the fact that he can't straighten out his hat.
Oh, hats to the left. I twitch.
But yeah, he's been very consistent, very consistent.
Hey, and he's unique. I love the side hat. I love tweeting hats to the left.
I am indifferent to it, but the fact that old baseball fans, it drives them crazy.
And the funny thing is there were old-time baseball players who kind of wore their hats crooked.
You go look at any old-timey baseball cards where it looked like they photoshopped the color in because they didn't have cameras that were in that color, and they're all wearing their hats goofy.
Yeah, exactly. So relax, it's a hat.
People just like to be mad about stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But one thing I wanted to talk about that's is we're starting to see. I think it was sort of a weird conversation that I think the Chicago baseball media was having, where we were still beating up on the White Sox for not signing Manny Machado or Bryce Harper, and it was. When are we going to see another free agent class like this one, where 2 superstars in their just going into their primes, in their mid-20s, are going to be on free agency like this? When is that going to happen? And then immediately after, you start seeing, a bunch of contract extensions, and then it just that's got to dawn on both, the Cubs and Sox front office of, oh crap, we need to start working now, because we're not going to see the free agent market that we have. A little bit different of a scenario is the Cubs are going to looking at it. We got to lock up Chris Bryant, and the White Sox are going, crap, where are we going to sign a guy to take us to the next level?
Yeah, extensions galore. I'll get into the Eloy extension in a minute, but yeah, in terms of free agents, you're not going to get a Manny Machado or a Bryce Harper anytime soon. Anybody. Every day it seems like somebody's getting extended. Chris Sale just got extended. Paul Goldschmidt just got extended. He's going to be killing the Cubs for another 5 years.
You're missing one extension.
Oh, I'm missing a ton of them. Mike Trout.
Mike Trout. That contract is so beyond
But
ridiculous.
he's the best,
The
though.
funny part is he is. But the funny part about it is I know so many delusional Phillies fans that were all like, they're like, Bryce Harper down. Now next year he's gonna recruit Trout to come here because he's from the Philadelphia area and he's an Eagles fan and he's gonna come and play for us and it's gonna be awesome. And they're going on and on and on because they got Bryce Harper and suddenly now they're emboldened. And then Mike Trout just like, nope, I just signed this massive forever deal. I'm never going to play for the Phillies.
He's going to be a career Angel, and I think the Angels really better get their butts in gear and build a contender around him because he's only been to the playoffs once. And no, it's not his fault. He is still one of the best players ever. The whole, oh, but he hasn't won a postseason game. Yeah, because that's all his fault, right?
He is single-handedly the best player in baseball.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And if there is anyone in sports who deserves a record-breaking contract, it is him.
It's like, and the thing is, like, most of the time, like, oh, who's the best player in the sport at the time? And, you know, they'll have tossed about some names. Like, there was a few times in my life where it was just like, no, this is the person. And it was Wayne Gretzky during his prime, Michael Jordan in his prime, and Mike Trout right now. Like, there's really not much argument. I mean, you could try to bring up some names, and then most people are just going to eye roll you.
Right.
And there's a 1935 baseball card of Rogers Hornsby where he's got his hat cocked to the right.
See, there you go, an all-time great.
And it's not even sitting down right. It's like way sitting on top of his forehead, so it's like on the top of his receding hairline tilted right. So it's even worse.
Yeah. So stop worrying about Pedro's hat.
Yeah.
Did you see that special with him, though, on the YouTube channel?
I did not.
Watch it. He talks about his home country. It's really cool. I won't go into details. You just got to watch it. I had to get that out.
Oh, okay. I'll check that out.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. But yeah, I mean, with these contract extensions, where do the White Sox go from here? I mean, they're going to have to. They're either going to just go with what they have and be cheap, and we'll get to their signing, you know, in a minute. But what do they do when all the superstars are going to be locked up to extensions?
Here's what I think you're going to see. Because this White Sox system has such an embarrassment of riches, you're going to see trades. You're going to see them trade away some big prospects for some big names when they get better.
Yeah, it's, you know, I'm not even going to blame Rick Hahn because I don't think it's his fault. And
I don't think so either.
It's Kenny and ownership. They're the ones that put the kibosh on spending, and you know they've got to just be. They're sitting in the passenger seat of a runaway freight train, and they have no idea what's happening.
Well, I mean, you look at the market, and you look at Spot Trek, where they have all the listed free agents year after year. And it's just every day, boom, one's gone, boom, one's gone, boom, one's gone. And you think about the rumored names for, like, let's just say the White Sox. After Manny Machado, people brought up Nolan Arenado, and then people would bring up one who's still available technically, not as much as Arenado, but like Anthony Rendon in Washington, but don't be surprised if they extend him too. I think this is what makes the Manny Machado miss hurt the most, is just because it's not like you can just do this again. There's just not going to be a Manny Machado available anytime soon.
Yeah, so I mean, from the White Sox end, it's kind of embarrassing now that you missed out and you're gone, and that was your pretty much your far and away best chance, and you blew it. And now you're just sitting with egg on your face as other guys are signing extensions. On the Cubs camp is everybody signing these extensions is now the eyes are starting to look at, oh, what's Chris Bryant doing? And you've got to lock him up.
I just don't think Scott Boras and Chris Bryant are going to not test free agency. Even with everyone else getting extensions, to me, the Bryant thing really takes two to tango. And we could be mad at the Cubs for not having an extension, but despite what Bryant says, I really am not convinced they're interested in talking an extension right now. I think we should talk about other players on the Cubs that need to get extended. But in Bryant's case, I just don't see it happening right now.
Yeah, that's sucks.
You know who you need to extend right now is Kyle Hendricks. That's who you need to extend.
Who's his agent?
Not Scott Boras.
Oh, then you could get it done.
Yeah, and he's a pitcher. You can get a good deal on him. I wrote an article for Cubby's Crib yesterday or the day before talking about the possibility of extending Rizzo. Now, after this year, he has 2 years that are team options. And let's face it, they're going to pick those up. But he is the guy to me. He said he wants to stay a Cub. Him, I see a bit more sincere on this end. I think he would take a hometown discount. I think if you offered him 5 years, $110 million, that would get it done. Think about it. He's going to be, 29 this year? Or he is 30. He's either 29 or 30. If you have him for another 5 years through his mid-30s, you're going to get him through his prime years. And, you get the most out of Anthony Rizzo. He's been the face of the franchise. I think that he's at least someone to think about in terms of extension.
It makes sense. Makes sense. But let's talk about the White Sox and their signing of Eloy Jimenez.
Yes.
So the terms are $5 million signing bonus and salaries of $1 million, 1.5, 3.5, 6.5, and 9.5, and 13. There's a $3 million buyout that applies to either of the options, which are priced at 16.5 and 18.5. How did the White Sox steal this guy?
It's incredible. And here's the thing. To me, he's either going to be a star or at the very least a good player. I don't see him at all being a total bust by any means. But no matter what happens, you are not tying yourself down.
No,
that's a great deal.
There's no arbitration involved. Like you're paying him.
Right.
And you would have been paying more in arbitration if he was anywhere near what we think he's going to be. So I don't know who his agent is, but I think that agent is terrible.
Well, Rick Hahn has done a great job of creating very team-friendly deals. You look at Sale, you look at Quintana, and now you look at Jimenez. So that's one thing you got to give credit to Hahn. You really have to. Tim Anderson, yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, and I don't know how they do this. And they don't pay. I mean, I guess they're like, well, I'm stuck with this organization that's cheap. Might as well just guarantee my money.
Right.
I don't know what the deal is, but yeah, they lock him up. And if at this point now he doesn't play on opening day, I think White Sox Nation is just going to throw their hands up in disgust.
Well, I think he is. I mean, they sent Nicky Delmonico down. I think it's pretty obvious he's going to be playing.
And I'm happy that this happened. I'm sucks that he's not getting what I think he's worth. But that he gets to be their opening day is going to be a cool thing. I think that's going to, rejuvenate some excitement with the White Sox fandom, especially when they've had several years of just, losing all of their named players, losing so many games, missing out on Manny Machado. And, this is finally something for them going, thank goodness we get Eloy on day one. We don't have to wait however long.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. If you didn't have Eloy Jimenez on opening day, I think opening day would, while White Sox fans are obviously excited for baseball, the whole Manny Machado thing would be hanging over. But, even though you don't have him, at least you'll be able to look forward to that. So it was good that they got this done and that they'll have him on opening day.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. I'm really excited. I mean, I don't even know who the White Sox are playing opening day, but
Kansas City.
I'm probably going to watch that because I really want to see what Eloy does. Even though he's no longer in the Cubs system, I'm still an Eloy fan, and I want to see him do well.
Yeah, it's definitely going to hurt a little bit, but you know what? I hope he pans out. I really do. I have nothing against the guy, nothing at all.
No,
and
not at all.
At least we'll be able to get to watch him because he's in Chicago, so we'll be able to watch him. But a little part of me is going to be like, dang, he was once ours, but you got to move on from that.
Yeah, is what it is.
Yep.
All right. Do you have any more?
I will say this for hey, Hector Gomez, he didn't get the numbers right, but he did say there was an extension. So I guess I will give props to him for having that news, even though originally they said it wasn't happening. And I thought, maybe this would be too risky, like we talked about in the last episode, but this deal is so friendly, it's not really risky.
This is not a risk at all.
No.
Yeah. Especially, I don't even think it would be risky if you guaranteed those last 2 years. The last 2 years are options at 16.5 and 18.5.
Right.
I don't even think those are that risky.
No, they're not.
Based on the talent this guy has, I wouldn't even consider. But then the fact that they're option years, this is a no-brainer for the White Sox. They're going to be paying less in this guaranteed salary that they signed for a contract than they would be with arbitration. Guaranteed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what is Bryant making in arbitration right now?
Not what he's worth.
Well, no, but he's making what, like 15?
It's between like 12 and 15. I think I have to look at the exact numbers.
And what year is this he's in? 1, 2, 3. What year is this one he's in?
15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So fifth.
This is so 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so in Eloy Jimenez's fifth year, he'll be making 9.5.
Yeah,
that's less than Chris Bryant, and it's half a decade from now. So it is such a steal.
It really is. It really is.
It almost frustrates me, the fact that it's nice because this kid doesn't have to worry about money ever again, but
no,
he's not getting what he's worth.
Of course not. And it usually doesn't happen in arbitration deals.
No. Is there anything baseball left you wanted to talk about?
We've talked about a lot. Goodness. I don't really know. I don't think so. We'll have a lot to talk about after the first few games, I'm sure.
Yeah. Hockey, I was hoping we'd have something more interesting to talk about, but the Blackhawks had a razor-thin margin of error to make the playoffs, and they sort of pooped the bed there with the games against Philadelphia, and it was almost must-wins against Colorado.
What's really disappointing is that the stars have disappeared.
Yeah.
Kane, DeBrincat. I know Tay scored a goal the other day, but they've been, for the most part, nowhere to be found the past few weeks. Corey Crawford is keeping this team in games.
Yeah, so it's frustrating to see. And on one hand, it's frustrating to see. But on the other hand, I'm like, did I really want to see them make the playoffs and have to watch them get demolished in the first round?
I mean, when you think about it, the Coyotes losing some games and Colorado not being that much of a dominant force is really what kind of kept the Blackhawks in this race. Those teams were like 1 or 2 wins away, and the Hawks were 1-2 losses away from being completely out of it. I mean, they were pretty much on the fringe for like a month now. And as soon as it looked like the Hawks were kind of like fading away, they'd win a few in a row, and the Coyotes would lose a few games, or Colorado would lose a few games, and they'd get right back in the fringe, but they would never get to the playoffs. That's what's really irritating. At this point, just put us out of our misery, because 99.9% chance it's not happening after that Colorado loss. At this point, they would have to win out and get some help. Just end it here. Just be done with it.
Yeah, might as well lose the last few games, because you have the golden opportunity to, if you lose the last several of your games, to move up several spots in the I guess, how do I say this? The move downwards to get a better shot at winning the draft lottery. Because you're tied with points with Edmonton and Vancouver, and you're really close with Anaheim. So I mean, that's like many higher percentage you have of getting the higher draft lottery pick. So you can't make the playoffs. You might as well get a better draft pick. And plus, even if you were to eke into the playoffs, do you really want to play Calgary?
I mean, I don't think Calgary's as good as they seem because of the Western Conference, but I think Calgary would definitely wipe the floor with them.
Calgary has 101 points right now and a plus 58 goal differential. They would put up so many goals on the Blackhawks.
Yeah, no, they would definitely crush the Blackhawks.
Holy crap. I knew Tampa was good, but
they're historic.
They've got 120 with 6 games left. They have 120 points and a plus 99 goal differential. The next best team is Calgary at 58.
That's crazy. Now, could you imagine what a letdown it would be if they didn't win the Stanley Cup?
There's a good possibility that it happens.
Well, I mean, in hockey, it's much more of a crapshoot in hockey than a few other sports. But just at this rate, I mean, think about the Golden State Warriors that broke the Bulls record. That was the team that blew the 3-1 lead. Mm-hmm. Does anybody talk about that regular season for the Golden State Warriors? No.
No. Mm-mm.
So I'm kind of rooting for Tampa, though. I mean, that's a really good team. I couldn't stomach it if we have to see St. Louis win.
So I don't want to see anybody from the Central win, because they're the Blackhawks division. I don't want to see Vegas win because they're new. I don't want to see San Jose win because I don't want to see a California team win it.
I wouldn't mind Erik Karlsson getting a cup.
I don't want Dallas or Colorado to win for the same reason. So in the West, I'm going to be on Team Calgary by default. And in the East, I hate Brad Marchand. So Boston is out.
I don't really want to root for Boston.
So they're out. I don't want Cindy Crosby to win, so Pittsburgh's out. I probably unpopular opinion. I'm going to root for Toronto. I'm rooting for an all Canada Toronto versus Calgary Stanley Cup final.
Part of me wants to root for Toronto. Part of me doesn't. I feel like from Toronto, there's a lot of entitlement there. And, let's face it, 2016 Cubs are probably like that too. But
you know what? They're kind of entitled, but they haven't really won in a long time.
It's literally the Cubs. This would literally be like the Cubs winning the World Series for hockey.
Yeah, so I'm going to root for Canada. Even if it's Montreal or Toronto versus Calgary, that's kind of what I want.
Now, I would die to see a Canadiens Leafs playoff series. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be fun. What if it's a Stanley Cup final? Just throwing this out there. Columbus versus Vegas.
I will throw up for accuracy and distance. Do not give me that garbage.
I couldn't think of a worse Stanley Cup final for not only like me, but the sport in general.
That's nightmare for ratings right there. Nightmare.
All of Canada would, like, I don't know, jump into whatever bay they live near. Like, that would just be devastating for that whole country.
Were 2011 Vancouver Canucks the last Canadian team to make the finals?
Wow, NHL. I'm gonna Google this. NHL
because last year it was Capitals, Vegas. The year before, Penguins, Predators. Year before, Penguins, Sharks. Then Hawks, Lightning. Then Kings, Rangers. Then Hawks, Bruins. And then Devils, Kings. And then 2011, Vancouver, Boston.
Wow.
And then before who was before that? Was it 07 when the Senators played the Ducks? Because after that you had two matchups between the Penguins and the Red Wings. Then you had Hawks Flyers.
Yeah, I'm just double checking your math here. So yeah, Vegas, Blackhawks, Tampa. Yeah, 2011 Vancouver, Boston. Before that was 07 Anaheim versus Ottawa, and then the year before that Carolina, Edmonton. When was the last time a Canadian team won it?
I think it was the Canadiens in 93.
Yep.
Yeah. I think for the sake of the sport, we need to see a Canadian team at least be in the finals. As an American, I will say that.
Wow.
Here's a team we didn't talk about yet. It's not Canadian, but would you want to see the Islanders win?
I don't root for any New York teams ever. Even though,
okay.
I mean, especially because they're like a Long Island. Yeah. So in the West, I can only root for Calgary. In the East, I could root for Toronto. I could root for Carolina. I could root for Montreal.
I could root for Carolina. Yeah.
I wouldn't I'm not anti-Capitals. I'm not anti-Tampa. The only reason I wouldn't want Tampa to win it is I have a friend who lives in Florida, and he's one of those people that has he's like, oh, my team won, but he's got 8 different teams. So he's like a diehard Red Wings fan and a diehard Islanders fan and a diehard Tampa Bay Lightning fan.
What the hell?
And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like you pick a team and that's your team. Like, it's all right if you want to have somebody in the other conference that like your secondary team, I'll give that to you. But you can't have three teams you're diehard for. Like, that just doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
And-
that's crazy.
And pick a city. Like you either root for teams from this city. You can't mix and match.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I could see like rooting for a team in the playoffs, but not like being a diehard fan. But yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, the only time you can root for teams from another city is if you live in some weirdo location that's like in between. So like if you grew up in like Connecticut, like you don't have you have the Whalers, but other than that you don't have a team. So you're like, oh, okay, well I'm a Yankees fan for baseball, but I'm a Patriots fan for football because you're like in the middle. Okay, I'll give you that. But he lives in Orlando, so like you should be a Magic fan. You should be, your team should be in Florida. He's originally from,
or I mean, if you have a family that's from somewhere else and it was passed on, I could see.
He's
that
originally
as well.
from New York. Like we grew up like high school age. So like, all right, so take your New York teams. Like that's what it is. Like I took my allegiance to Chicago sports, and when I moved to Philadelphia, I didn't become a Philadelphia fan. I'm like, sure, I would go to.
That's the last thing I'd expect you to do.
Yeah, like I would go to games because that was all that there was. But like, I was still a Cubs fan. I was still a Bears fan. I was still a Blackhawks fan. I didn't start rooting for those other teams.
Gross.
Yeah, not happening.
Here's a question for you. You didn't mention this team in the West yet. What about the Winnipeg Jets?
No, because they're in the same division as the Blackhawks. I can't root for somebody in the division. Yeah, so
I could get behind Winnipeg, honestly. That's the one team in the division I could get behind.
yeah, if I had to root for somebody in the division, it would be Winnipeg.
No way I'm rooting for St. Louis. No way I'm rooting for Nashville. No way I'm rooting for Dallas.
Yeah, in the division, I hate Minnesota. I hate Colorado. I hate Dallas. I hate St. Louis. I hate Nashville. I just dislike Winnipeg.
I don't even dislike Winnipeg. They're just kind of meh to me. Yeah, I don't like Minnesota either, but I don't think they're even going to make it. Colorado is another team I don't really dislike that much. They just annoy me because they're always a thorn in the Blackhawks' side. So
My dislike for them has just gone back many moons, so it's kind of carried over.
like the mid-90s playoffs.
Yeah, so I've disliked them since then. So like you probably don't have, because you were little then, like you don't have that bias. You probably if you were my age, you would probably hate them too. Yeah, so that's where that carries over. The Winnipeg, I don't like them just because they're in the division and they're a rival, but like they're kind of like if you go in the Cubs division, like the Reds, where I'm like, I don't like the Reds because they're in the division, but I don't hate the Reds.
If I had to choose somebody I'd want to see win the division in the NL Central, it would be the Reds.
Yeah, if the Cubs can't win it, I would want the Reds to win it.
Right. No way I'd root for like St. Louis or Milwaukee.
Yeah. And Pittsburgh is another one where, you probably don't have the hatred, but back when Bonds and Bonilla were there and they just like clobbered everybody for years, like I just seethed with anger from that team.
I don't hate Pittsburgh, but I don't particularly like them.
Yeah, because you don't remember when they had Bonds and Bonilla.
No, I don't.
You're like, oh, this team.
I just remember them running their mouths in recent years and always finishing behind us.
Yeah, so like my dislike for them just sort of carried on from my childhood, but the Reds, like they really, I mean, they've had a couple of good years here and there in my lifetime, but most of their great seasons are from before I was born.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have. I've always compared them to the Bears. They're the Bears of baseball. They have a similar looking logo. They're two of the oldest teams in their respective sport. They boast some of the greatest players of all time to play for them. They had success many moons ago, but the past 2 decades, they really haven't seen success. Is that a fair comparison?
That's pretty fair. Yeah, so it's like since I was like little, um, like I mean, when I was real little, they had some good teams, but since I was old enough to watch baseball, it's like maybe 5-ish. They
Like the Big Red Machine
in
was before your time.
Yes, so they had 1990 they had 91 wins. 92 they had 90 wins.
Well, they won the World
99
Series in what, 90?
Yeah. They in 1999 they had 96 wins. They had 97 in 2012. Well, mostly they just been terrible. 67, 68, 68, 64, 76, 79, 78, 74, 72, 80, 73. They've just mostly been a mediocre middle of the road team.
Yeah, I mean, all those years they had Griffey,
like-
but outside that,
Yeah, like the couple years before I was born, they had 102, 108, 98, 99, 95, 102 wins. And those were like the years leading right up to when I was born.
yeah, I mean, in my lifetime, I only remember them being good earlier this decade when they made the playoffs in like 2012, 2013. Outside that, nothing.
Yeah. In my lifetime, like in actual lifetime, they have won the division once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in 41 years.
No. And I can't say Cubs
Not very
history is
good.
much better before Theo came in, but they've had recent success, and the Reds are trying to build back recent success. And they've made a lot of moves this offseason, but yeah, I mean, if they were in a big game to win a division over another division rival that's not us, I'd probably root for them.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically this season for the Blackhawks is lost. They're not making the playoffs. It's going to be all about the lottery. And come on, we need the Bulls and the Blackhawks to win the draft lotteries to create some excitement.
Yeah, that would be something. I'd rather have the Bulls win it because that's a lot more essential, but it would be cool having Jack Hughes, but I'm really not counting on the Blackhawks getting that. So
Well, they don't rig the NHL draft lottery. So
no, but if the Blackhawks win the draft lottery, people are definitely going to say it is rigged, even if it isn't. That's a funny thing.
Yeah, but as I'm watching the March Madness, I'd be okay if the Bulls got the second overall pick because that Ja Morant looks good.
He does. And here's the thing. If they don't get Zion, that's the guy I want. If you get him and not Zion, you could still count that as a big get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big get. So yeah, I don't really have much else to talk about except a couple of Bears things. Is last week my prediction was during the week the Bears would probably sign depth at edge rusher and sign a punter. And that was 50% right because they re-signed Mega Punt or Mega Kick. Is he Mega Punt or Mega Kick?
I think it's Mega Kick.
I don't know. He had a dumb nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dumb nickname, whatever it is. Pat O'Donnell, they signed him to a 2-year deal. And they did not sign an edge rusher, which a little bit surprising because this at this time last week, there was a decent number of outside edge rushers that were pretty decent that you could have. And that list is starting to dwindle. DeMarcus Lawrence was franchise tagged. Jadeveon Clowney was franchise tagged. Frank Clark was franchise tagged. D Ford signed a 5-year deal with the 49ers. Trey Flowers signed a 5-year deal with the Lions. Preston Smith signed a 4-year deal with Green Bay. Zadarius Smith signed a 4-year deal with Green Bay. Justin Houston signed a 2-year deal with Indianapolis. Dante Fowler signed a 1-year deal with the Rams. Brandon Graham with Philadelphia. Marcus Golden with the Giants. Terrell Suggs with Arizona. Clay Matthews signed with the Rams. Shaq Barrett signed a 1-year, $4 million with Tampa, which would have been sweet for the Bears to get. Julius Peppers announced his retirement. Cameron Wake went to Tennessee. So really, like the guys that are left, you got Ziggy Ansah, who is probably arguably one of the most talented on this list, but has also been the most underperforming. Nick Perry, who I don't want. Shane Ray, who I loved coming out of college a couple years ago, but he's been a disappointment considering the team he's had around him. Like he should have been able to thrive. Derek Morgan, who's in his 30s. Like Aaron Lynch, you could bring back.
Pernell McPhee.
He hasn't signed anywhere. Pernell McPhee is still out there. Coney Ely's an actually kind of interesting one. Eli Harold. There's not a lot of names out. Frosty Rucker, Sam Acho. Like there's not much as far as depth goes as outside linebacker. So I'm curious of what the Bears are doing because like right now it is, Khalil Mack, who's obviously your top dog, Leonard Floyd, who's on your clear starter on the other side, and Isaiah Irving as your number 3. Like, don't you want more depth than that? Like, you've got to at least have one more guy. And based on their draft capital, they're not going to get a quality edge rusher. So, like, that is the Achilles heel going into it. Like, I mean, what would be awesome is if they could get like a 1-year prove it deal with Ziggy Ansah, but I just can't see a guy who's going to be 30 wanting to sign a 1-year prove it deal when, this might be his last opportunity to sign a multi-year big deal. He just hasn't gotten it yet.
But what if he doesn't get that multi-year deal and the Bears would have a chance to sign him for pretty cheap? You think they'd pounce on it?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I thought the Bears would have already signed somebody by now. But that's what it is. But I think Ziggy Ansah would be a quality. Can you figure out Shane Ray? He's had injuries and he's had some lack of production. He's 25. Aaron Lynch is 26. When he's healthy, he played well for you.
Mm-hmm.
Coney Ely has bounced around a lot. 27. I just, yeah. Eli Harold, he has not done anything. Last year he had 4 sacks. So there's not a lot of. So they either think that their team is good enough where they can plug somebody in that'll do well, or I don't know. I don't really know what the situation is with Ryan Pace and what he's thinking, because I just feel like right now that's kind of the Achilles heel. Is the interior is solid, your linebacking core is solid, and now you've signed your the players that you were missing, the starters you were losing, you replaced them on the secondary. So your defense is pretty stacked. It is that, and it's, you could say, oh, well, it's a good spot to be in if you're upset that your rotational defensive end or your outside linebacker is your weak spot. But, considering Leonard Floyd has not played 16 games in a season, 16 healthy games in a season. And like you need some depth
Right.
there.
Definitely.
You know, it's a tough game. I mean, you even lost Khalil Mack for several games last year. You just you need
You can't have enough
you
depth.
need the depth, and you need quality depth. And I just don't know where they're going to get. You know, they're going to get it at this point. They're running out of real estate.
Yeah, there's not much out there at this point.
Yeah, so you know, either they're going to pounce on a guy like Ziggy Ansah if he wants to do a prove it deal. And the thing is, I think he's talented enough where you do a 1-year prove it deal, and he could probably still get, you know, he'll probably get more than Terrell Suggs getting, which is a 2-year
It
5.
won't be making pennies. It won't be a huge deal, but it won't be pennies.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at what it'd be comparable. Maybe like a 1-year, $8 to $10 million deal. I wonder if that gets it done.
It could.
I mean, Dante Fowler is 24 and signed a 1-year, $12 million. So Ziggy Ansah is going to be 30 this year.
If he was a little younger, I'd definitely say he'd make more. I wouldn't even think he'd get a prove it deal if he was younger, but I think his age is a factor in this, a pretty big one.
Yeah, Bruce Irvin is like a year and a half older, and he signed a 1-year, $4 million deal. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. That maybe that's the answer there, because he's a guy that has all the talent in the world, but he's also had not a lot of talent around him. Maybe you put him on the other side of Khalil Mack, and with, you know, the talent they have in the middle of the defensive line, maybe Ziggy Ansah finally realizes his potential and, you know, still gets to terrorize quarterbacks in the same division.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think it's funny. My other Bears thought is going back and watching some of the tougher moments that the Bears had this season, and every time the Bears had a really tough game this season, I hate to say this, but Adrian Amos was involved in a lot of the bad plays in those big games that they lost.
That one play that the video is going around on Twitter where he should have picked off, what's his face in the playoffs?
Nick
Nick
Foles.
Foles. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Where he instead went for the tackle and just like missed the tackle and the guy caught it.
Yeah, towards the end of the game. Yeah, that should have been a deflected pass or an interception. And you feel like Clinton Dix would have been a better opportunity to make that play. Eddie Jackson definitely would have been. And so you're like, okay, well, why exactly are we going to miss out on Adrian Amos? Sure, he's a harder hitter, but we've got plenty of hard hitters in the front seven. We don't need Adrian Amos to be a hard hitter. Hard hitting in the playoffs cost us, you know, a
Right.
drive, because it was a penalty. I kind of like the Clinton Dix is coming here on a much cheaper deal, much less years they have to worry about it, and he's a much better cover safety. So I don't understand why couch GMs are already writing off the Bears because the Packers overpaid for Adrian Amos.
Yeah, I think the Packers are going to need to do a lot more. I mean, I know Clay Matthews wasn't nearly what he once was, but they lost him. And who else did they just lose? I felt like they just lost someone else too.
The Packers?
Yeah.
Nick Perry.
I thought there was somebody else, a bigger name. Maybe I'm just thinking of Clay Matthews.
Yeah, I don't know who else. Nobody else I can think of.
Yeah, I can't either. I thought there was somebody else. Maybe I'm just imagining it, but yeah.
But yeah, so I just don't understand because that team overpaid. Good. Maybe we get a compensatory pick for losing Adrian Amos.
That'd be nice.
It'd be nice. The Bears don't usually get compensatory picks.
No, they don't.
I'm just tweeting out a picture of me with my new pal Israel Adonijah. Met him yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Speaking of random former Bears. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So I'm a big guy. I'm like 6'1", 250, and
Mhm.
I look like a small child standing next to him.
Yeah, he was a big dude.
He's a very big dude.
So I was just going to say, speaking of former Bears, as most people probably know, Gronk retired today, and I watched a Gronk compilation video, just like some of his highlights, and one of them was him absolutely torching Ryan Mundy in 2014 and going in for the touchdown. And I just thought about that defense and just, oof.
Ryan Mundy is a name that I took and I filed in the I don't want to remember category.
There are a few defenders from that era I could actually say I want to put in a memory bank.
Yeah, I absolutely put him in there.
Chris Conti.
Adam Archuleta.
I completely forgot about that guy.
The best part about Adam Archuleta was his wife. She's gorgeous.
I've not seen a picture of her.
Yeah, so his wife was Playmate of the month for August 2001.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, she's a looker. But other than that, yeah, I put him out of my mind.
Well, I got that 2014 team because at least Pernell McPhee was pretty good. Or I don't think he was on the team. I meant, or was he? Willie Young was good. He was on that team. He was probably one of the best defenders on that team, and that's 2014.
What year? 2014. Their defense, Jared Allen was miserable.
Yeah, he did not. He was old, washed, didn't fit. Tim Jennings was old. Tim Jennings was a good player, but by 2014, he was old.
Your safeties were Chris Conti and Ryan Mundy.
Yeah.
Shea McClellan. You had Lance Briggs, but it was old Lance Briggs.
Old. Very old. Lamar Houston, where he tore his ACL celebrating the sack of a backup quarterback.
The best player you had on that defense was probably crazy Jay Ratliff.
I forgot all about him.
Remember, he had to get escorted out of practice because he lost his mind?
Yep. Willie Young had 10 sacks that year.
He had a nice year.
He did.
That was a good signing away from Detroit.
It was. David Bass.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Cornelius Washington. Isaiah Fry. 2 games, the corpse of Charles Tillman. Very sad, but he was hurt like all year. Jonathan Bostic, who had 1 big hit in preseason. That was it.
Didn't he win a Super Bowl in New England?
Probably. I mean, so did Shea McClellan and countless others. Christian Jones. Oh, man. Brock Vereen.
So which was the worst safety duo, 2014 with Ryan Mundy and Chris Conti, or 2013 with Chris Conti and Major Wright?
I would say 2014. I don't remember Major Wright being that bad. Maybe I just blocked it out of my memory.
I believe 2013. I'd have to look, but I believe Pro Football Focus rated them as the 2 worst safeties in football.
Well, that defense was terrible.
Yeah, they were. We had
looking at his stats now, yeah, not good.
What's funny is 2013 we had Julius Peppers still, and 2014 we had Jared Allen, and those 2 years will probably go down as those 2 Hall of Famers' worst seasons ever.
Oh yeah, and Julius Peppers was about an inch away from sacking Rodgers to win the division.
Wonk wonk. He should have been 6. He should have been. He should have been 6'8".
Yep. Oh man, that defense, that 2013 defense. Good heavens, that was terrible.
What the most annoying thing is Chris Conti was terrible, but Lovey brought him down to Tampa. Like, why? He's awful.
And then he picked 6 Jay Cutler in that one game and celebrated crazily.
Yeah. Ugh.
Do you know who the leading interception getter was in 2013?
For the Bears or overall in the league? 2013. It's going to... Are you going to tell me it's Julius Peppers?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
He had 1. It was Tim Jennings with 4.
Tim Jennings would have been my logical one, but the way he based it, I was like, oh man, it's gonna be something weird, isn't it?
No.
Did he
Chris Conti had 3.
Yeah, geez. That starting secondary had 12 interceptions.
Yeah. You had an old Tim Jennings, an old Charles Tillman, Chris Conti and Major Wright, Zachary Bowman, Jonathan Bostic, an old Julius Peppers, Kasim Green, David Bass, an old Lance Briggs in the front, Isaiah Fry, Corey Wooten, who will always just be the guy who ended Brett Favre's career. Yeah. Oh boy. I think what made that defense particularly awful was their run defense was historically bad from what I remember.
They were historically bad, just period.
Yes, they were.
Did you see that the Bears were one of the finalists to get Adrian Peterson as a running back for this year?
I did. I thought that was very odd.
That's very un-Ryan Pace-like because of his age. But, I mean, if you're going to rotate running backs, Adrian Peterson still at this age can put up some serious numbers.
Do you believe that report, or do you think it was just kind of talk?
I mean, it could be one of those things that the Bears just inquired. And it could have been one of those things is if he was willing to take a $1 million deal, veteran minimum, that the Bears would have been interested. But once the value went up, the Bears were not interested. So you never know the level of interest.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing to base this opinion off of. I just have that feeling of they checked in with him, and that was kind of it. Again, I could be wrong. That's just kind of my theory.
Yeah, I don't think their interest was more than $1 million a year interest. 1 year, $1 million. That's kind of where I think the interest was. But Washington signed a 34-year-old running back to a 2-year deal worth over $5 million.
Yeah, they wanted him back.
And that is why Washington never wins under this regime.
Yeah.
Under this ownership group. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if he's still he's a Hall of Fame running back. You know, he's absolutely phenomenal. Even at 34, I think you could still get something out of him. I mean, the guy tore his ACL and came back in like what, 6 months, 5 months to run to put up the numbers he did in addition, not just come back, but to come back with how many yards did he run that year? It was unreal. Like the guy is phenomenal. So if you could have gotten him still with some gas in the tank, you know, I wouldn't have been like, if he's in a 3 running back rotation, yeah, I would totally bring in Adrian Peterson for $1 million and put him in that rotation.
Yeah, I'm looking at his stats now. I mean, 2012, he rushed for over 2,000 yards.
Yeah,
18
he's
touchdowns
ridiculous.
in 2009. Yeah, that's, and you know, you look at last year, he was on Washington the entire year. The year before that, remember, he was on New Orleans for 4 games and then Arizona for 6. And he played 10 total that year. But last year, had a 1,000 rush season at age 33, 7 touchdowns. I mean, for Adrian Peterson, that's not what he was in his prime, but for any running back, that's pretty good.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson, so it looks like he tore his ACL and then came back and rushed for 1,500 yards.
Yeah, because he only played 1 game in 2014. God, remember some of those games against the Bears that Adrian Peterson had? There were games where the Bears absolutely shut him down, and then there were games where he absolutely destroyed us. It was there. I don't think he ever had like a mediocre game against the Bears. It was either one extreme or the other. That's just how I remember it.
He was quoted 2 days ago as, I should have had 1,500, 1,600 yards last season.
Jeez.
This looks like Washington Post is saying it was a 2-year, $8 million deal. So, geez, not worth that money at this age. Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. I remember when he played in the high school, the Army Navy, like, or whatever that game is, the high school all-star game, and they'll have like the players reveal what school they're going to go to on TV. And Adrian Peterson was like 18 years old and was like, I could jump right to the NFL right now. And I laughed and laughed, and then until I saw him in Oklahoma, and I was like, all right, maybe he could.
Yeah, really.
Because he rushed for almost 2,000 yards as a freshman. And then and he came into the NFL and crushed it. So who knows?
Do you remember 2012? That really frustrating 2012 season for the Bears. And I think it was the last game of the season. It was the Bears won. They barely beat the Lions. They had to win, and Green Bay had to beat Minnesota in order to get into the playoffs. Do you remember that game? The Vikings won in overtime.
Vaguely. Didn't they put him in like the kick return?
Well, I don't remember that, but what I remember was he rushed for 199 yards in that game. Nearly 200 yards in one game.
Yeah, he's just ridiculous.
The Bears needed that game to get into the playoffs. And the funny thing was, that wasn't even his best game that year. I just remember watching that game because we needed to have Green Bay win that game for us to get in the playoffs. And they didn't.
Yeah, Green Bay is always sticking it to us.
I think they lost on purpose.
Yeah, what year was it that Adrian Peterson?
2014?
ACL?
No. Because he missed most of 2014, but I don't know if that was the ACL.
And December 24th, 2011.
Okay, that's what it was.
So in December of 2011, so it was so you would consider him, for most players, he would miss the whole next season. So he came back and rushed for 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
So he missed, instead of missing an entire season, he had one of the best seasons by a running back ever.
Mm-hmm.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
That's like I remember reading a quote that typically by the time that you go to do an ACL surgery, there's already like necrotic tissue and, dead and dying muscle in there. And they said Adrian Peterson didn't have that. It looked healthy tissue in there.
Yeah.
Because he was such a physical freak.
That's something.
But circling back to the Bears, that I have a hard time believing that they're not going to be pursuing an outside edge rusher at some point in free agency here. This is they're running out of guys, and they're just not in the position to draft somebody that's going to be an impactful.
Right. I mean, if they had all their draft picks, again, still worth it, then that'd be a different story, but they don't. And I think they're going to focus on running back if they do indeed trade Jordan Howard.
So it's, typically you'll see a dead period just before the draft, but we've got almost a month before the draft. So we've probably got another 2 weeks of semi-active free agency before that period dies out. And teams really aren't signing free agents because they're busy getting ready for the draft, and B, there's kind of like an unwritten moratorium on draft or signing guys, because you don't want to sign a guy and then end up drafting somebody that kind of fits that same position. So you go that first wave of free agency, get the guys you want. Then you go into the draft, and then after the draft, you reevaluate and reshuffle the deck and be like, okay, we've got this guy that we drafted, with this guy we signed, where else do we have holes, and what is the money we're looking like after we've kind of got our, because they slot part of your, the pool of money you have in cap space. Mm-hmm. They partition some of that out for draft picks. So after you've made trades or whatever, they allot how much you have for your draft picks. And then you're like, okay, well, this is how much money we have left. This is where our holes still are. And so you have that second wave of free agency. So I don't see the Bears going into the draft not having edge rusher. I would just be absolutely shocked.
I don't either.
I don't really have anything else. All right. Well, I guess this is going to do it for this episode of Bill Swirsky Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please make sure you hit us up on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swirsky Sports, Facebook.com/Swirsky Sports, SwirskySports.com. Hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or the TuneIn app. And if you have friends that listen to or watch Chicago sports, make sure you pass along this podcast. That's how we grow the podcast. And that is your homework this week. So thanks everybody so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van. And she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing